So yeah, I guess just to get things going, for folks who don't recognize me from previous Slow Food Live editions, my name is Brian Solom. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Communications for Slow Food USA. I'm based in the unceded homelands of the Ojibwa, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations here in Chicago. And again, if you are comfortable, please drop your introduction into the chat and we'll see who's in the room. If you're new to Slow Food USA, who's hosting this conversation today, we are a food justice movement and organization that strives to create a world where all people can eat food that is good for them, good for the people who grow it, and good for the planet. We cultivate nationwide programs and a network of more than 80 local chapters. We host educational events and advocacy campaigns, and we build solidarity through partnerships. Together, we are dismantling oppressive food systems to achieve good, clean, and fair food for all. If you'd like, you can learn more about us and the work that we do. And you can also become a member of our membership-based organization at slowfoodusa.org. And now I want to turn things over to our amazing moderator for today, Dr. Jen Cadenhead, who I'm going to add to video. Just as a way of brief introduction, Dr. Cadenhead studies food trauma in children and is the Goldberg postdoctoral scholar at the Laurie M. Tisch Center for Food, Education, and Policy at Teachers College, Columbia University. She's a second career dietitian and nutrition researcher. She primarily studies the impact of federal and local food policies on children's health and nutrition security. She works to understand and improve access to healthy foods for all people. Dr. Cadenhead also studies the relationship between diet quality, ultra-processed food consumption, and health. And so with that, I turn it over to you, Dr. Cadenhead.
Hi, so great to be here. Thanks all of you for joining us. And I'd just like to introduce our panelists, our three panelists, and then maybe they'll tell a little bit about themselves and provide some opening remarks, but just let me give you an introduction first. So Administrator Cindy Long was appointed Administrator of the Food and Nutrition Services on September 13th, 2021. And Long most recently served as Food and Nutrition Services FNS Acting Administrator and has extensive experience with FNS, including serving as the Deputy Administrator for the Child Nutrition Programs. In this role, she's led FNS's implementation of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act, the most significant restructuring of these programs in decades, and a legislative centerpiece for the Obama-Biden administration's nutrition initiatives. Previously, she held various other program management and research positions in FNS. So if you could just give us a few words about yourself and your role.
Well, thank you for that introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here. As you noted, I'm Cindy Long, and I'm currently the administrator for the Food Nutrition Service. And I've had the great honor of being the Biden-Harris administration's administrator for just over a year, but I have been a long-time career member of FNS and have more years of experience with these programs than I care to share. I'm sure that many of you know FNS is responsible for the federal funding, the oversight, and support for our state and local partners for all of the domestic nutrition assistance programs, including SNAP and WIC, as well as the Child Nutrition Program. You know, and just by way of an opening statement, what I would want to convey is that, you know, over all the long years that I have been here, but especially during the last 3 years, which have been so challenging, I have had the honor of witnessing how our local program operators get food and meals to eligible families in the most challenging of situations. And I've been very, very proud of everyone who works in child nutrition and how they have responded creatively, dependably, and really unflinchingly. So I just want to say to all of those who are part of the school meals community joining us today, you have my deep thanks and congratulations for your ingenuity and perseverance and dedication.
Well, thank you, Administrator Long. You have displayed remarkable leadership. So I think you're being very modest, but thank you. It's been very challenging times for a lot of people. Okay, and next we have Donna S. Martin, EDS, RDN, LD, SNS, FNAD, and she is the director of the school nutrition program in Burke County, Georgia. And it's a program that has 4,500 students in 5 schools, serving breakfast, lunch, after school snacks, supper, summer feeding program too, just all of them. And she served as the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics treasurer from 2013 and 2015, and then the president in 2017 and 18. She was the first school nutrition director to be the president of the Academy. And she's a graduate of the University of Georgia, earned a master's degree from the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and an education specialist degree from Augusta University. In 2016, as if that wasn't enough, Donna's work in the Burke County Public Schools nutrition program gained national attention when Michelle Obama and Al Roker visited Burke Middle School to help plant the school garden. And Donna was then invited to speak at the White House for Michelle Obama's capstone event, celebrating all the work that had occurred in changing how children eat. Donna was also awarded the 2016 Golden Radish Award for the state of Georgia because her efforts in the farm to school movement. Donna has been involved in numerous public policy initiatives, including testifying before Congress about the new school nutrition standards and the House of Representatives staff on the farm to school bill. And Donna just got to speak at the White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health on the importance of school meals just last week, and she was fabulous. Let's welcome you, and could you say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Cadenhead. And I want to thank Cindy Long for her leadership. She has been amazing, and we really appreciate her out in the school nutrition world. So the role that I play in school nutrition is that I want to make sure I provide teachers with students ready to learn. And that's why we provide breakfast in the classroom or grab and go breakfast. I provide them lunch. We do after school snacks. I do supper so the students that stay after school can be tutored. I provide it for the football team so they can make sure they can finish practice. And I run 5 schools, but I really like to say I run 5 restaurants because I have to make all ends meet. I have to pay for my labor, my staff, the food, everything. And I don't get any money from the school board. So I really run 5 restaurants. And all my schools eat at no cost. They participate in the community eligibility program. And what I love about that program is there's no stigma of the children being free. We don't have any lunch debt or anything like that. And we do have a huge farm to school program that I think is very advantageous to kids and to the community. And the last thing I want to mention is I have beautiful kitchens, which most school districts do not have. And so I'm able to do all this scratch cooking and provide great food. And just because the meals are free does not mean the kids are going to eat it. But when you have well-equipped kitchens and staff, then you're able to provide nutritious, healthy meals that the kids want to eat. So I look forward to this conversation today, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you, Donna. And as Administrator Long has mentioned, you're one of the true heroes on the line every day doing the work to help keep children fed. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Andre Lindsay. He's currently works for the House Committee on Education and Labor as Democratic staff and a professional staff member. Andre is a 2017 graduate of George Washington University, where he earned a BA in International Affairs. He has spent the last 5 years as a policy associate working on early childhood, K through 12, child welfare, and child nutrition policy, and now leads the child nutrition and family violence portfolio for the committee. Originally from a Title I school in Broward County, Florida, Andre has grown up on the school meal program, and he knows firsthand how meaningful the program is to families experiencing hard times. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you, Jen. So as Jen mentioned, Andre Lindsay, professional staff at Labor Committee. And so I spent the past 5 years working on a slew of issues, but most recently this past year, I was fortunate enough to work on child nutrition reauthorization. And as many of you know, we marked up our bill this past summer. And you may have noticed that there's been a little bit of a lull, but I would say right now we are committed to working on a path forward. We realize there's a slew of challenges. The Senate has the Farm Bill to turn to. Our friends across the aisle have funding concerns and insisted insistence on pay-fors, but where we are right now is that we just want to make people know that like even though the chairman has his bill out there, our product, we're flexible. It's not our bill, the highway. We're willing to work with the folks we need to work with to make sure we get this bill to the floor, but also it's meaningful and passes the smell test. And speaking of meaningful, the themes we really tried to incorporate in our bill was access to school meal programs, ensuring long-term viability, because we know during COVID, I repeatedly heard from folks that SFAs were struggling to even stay afloat, even with the increased reimbursement rate. SFAs were struggling to recruit talented staff with competitive salaries. So we know those challenges existed and remain even as we leave the pandemic. And I will say, one key component we always focus on is equity. Whenever I'm drafting legislation, I have a lens of equity on, and I think that having that lens allowed us to really have provisions that address challenges faced by various communities of color, those living in rural areas, tribal lands, low-income families. So I'm really proud of the work we were able to do there. And I just want to end by saying that I really appreciate everyone on this call. As Jim mentioned, I was served by the school meal program not even 10 years ago. In middle school, my mom lost her job, and when you're a young kid and you see your mom, your role model, have to struggle and get that stress, you start to feel like some guilt. Like, are you the burden? Are you the reason why they're struggling? So I think the program and other programs like it are really so impactful. So I'm just so grateful and really appreciate it. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Andre, and thank you for all your hard work and efforts behind the scenes fighting to get that policy made. And I know doing these compromises are not easy things. A lot of details, a lot of late nights. So thank you all three of you for being here. We have a great panel, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of perspectives. So let's start. First question, well, actually really is just to take a step back. I'm sure we have a lot of, or at least some very sophisticated policy savvy viewers out there in the audience, but probably many could viewing today could benefit from just a little bit of background or history on the child nutrition policy programs. So Administrator Long, will you start us out? You're on mute. Sorry.
Okay. I would be happy to do that now that I'm unmuted. Yeah, well, just to really step back and remind ourselves, these programs go back quite a while. They had their origins in 1946. Some of you may have seen a famous picture of Harry Truman signing the School Lunch Act. And really, these programs grew out of a national security concern. After World War II, there were concerns about the shocking number of recruits that couldn't qualify because they were malnourished. And so you had the National School Lunch Act and everything that's followed. So since then, of course, the programs have expanded and changed a lot. And now we have not just a lunch program, but a breakfast program, and the child and adult care, and the summer feeding, and many other programs. And I would actually note that several of those programs had their roots in the 1969 Conference on Nutrition, and we just had another one of those 50 years later. And I know we're going to come back to the conversation about that conference. I think it's also, I would also reflect that for the past couple of decades, I think we've seen a real increased focus on the nutrition aspects of these programs, including the historic Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and then the updated 2012 nutrition standards and everything that went along with that, including updates to CACFP and the provision of resources. So that, I think, has been an important focus in the program. Another real focus area in recent years that is really complementary, I think, to nutrition has been forging that connection between nutrition programs and local and regional agriculture. We saw the establishment of the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program around a decade ago, and that is not limited to local products, but it definitely provides a connection, and it exposes elementary students in lower income schools to fresh produce. And it's been tremendously successful in encouraging fresh vegetable consumption. And we know that based on hard evaluation data, as well as a ton of anecdotal evidence. The last thing I'll note is that during the same time period, we've also had really an explosion of interest and support for farm to school activities at the federal and the state and the local level. including everything from local purchasing to school gardens to integrated food education in the classrooms. And the last thing I will just note is that throughout the history of these programs and this sort of evolution of the areas of focus, the evidence shows that school meals are vital to the health and well-being and educational readiness of our kids. Recent research shows that American children get their healthiest meals of the day from schools. And let's remember, these programs serve over 30 million kids every day. For many kids, school breakfast and lunch make up about half of what they eat. I'll also say that we know that a focus on nutrition in the program works. After we updated the standards in 2012, we did a rigorous evaluation, and we found that school meals did become significantly more nutritious after updated standards were implemented. And gains can be seen in students across racial, ethnic, and income levels. And the last point I'll make is that evidence also showed that schools that serve healthier meals can see participation rates higher than schools that serve less healthy meals. And I think that is an important fact for us all to keep in mind as we go forward. So I'll stop there, Doctor.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot to take in. And I know I couldn't help but notice that Donna's just nodding her head. But maybe, I don't know if you wanted a few seconds to comment about just to add, your perspective on seeing those things in your programs, how they've affected the children in your program.
Sure, I'd love to. We know that food insecurity still exists in this country, and it's a huge problem. And I have children who on Monday morning run into the building to get breakfast because they're so hungry. I have teachers who put kids in summer school to make sure they get something to eat. And I watch children at breakfast and lunch grabbing food off other people's trays because they're hungry. But I also know that the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act made our meals the most nutritious meals anyone can get anywhere in the country. And she is so right. And based on that healthy eating index score, we have increased, which is really exciting for our kids, because I'm a true believer that you can't just have food to eat. You have to have healthy food in order to be able to learn. And the community eligibility program that has come about in the last 10 or 15 years has been amazing to let our kids eat at no cost. So they don't have to fill out those applications. They don't have to have that stigma. They don't have to worry about what Andre dealt with, having a tray taken away from him because his mother maybe couldn't afford to pay for meals. So those things have been great with the community eligibility program. And then the other thing is that I know that we are starting to do more nutrition education, and that nutrition education works. And that we know that if a child is growing their food or cooking their food or taste testing their food, that they're much more likely to eat it. And we also know that our farm to school program growing has made the food taste so much better, and that our farmers in my community love feeding the kids, and they love when they get that money, they say that I have fed the kids in my community. And we know that our community loves to know that the money is coming back and staying in our community. So, and we do these cooking classes that our kids really, really love. And I heard a kid just the other day say that it was the best day of his life after taking a cooking class. And he had literally made a stir fry of zucchini and asparagus. So that just, as a dietitian, made my heart sing. So, and then also the fact that we can now offer supper meals is huge, because we had kids who would not stay after school for tutoring. Now they stay, and we've seen our graduation rates increase because of it. And I know it's unpopular to talk about our athletic programs, but our athletes were literally malnourished, according to the Medical College of Georgia. And so by offering supper to them, they were able to finish practice, finish football games, and win our first ever state football championship. And the coach credited the school nutrition program with the win. So I think that all of these new programs that have come about, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Grant and all these opportunities, are making a difference in the lives of children. And we just need to keep going in that right direction. So thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really interesting how profound a school nutrition program can be in the lives of children. And would any of you like to also talk about any things you've seen as a beneficial impact during COVID in particular, the role they played for families, maybe giving a few examples if you have any?
Yeah, Jen, I'm happy to jump in here. I would say that, I think COVID-19 really allowed folks to, and I know this has been stated over and over, but like allowed folks to really put all these innovative approaches that people have been thinking about, throughout these years into practice, and we were able to see, what approaches worked well. We were able to see what approach with other approaches, maybe some additional guardrails or transparency we need in implementation and rollout. So I think that that's been just critical. And especially with COVID, I think the big thing with COVID, we've seen that what the need that arises when students aren't in the classroom, they need to be fed. So we really tried to tailor our transition bill towards those needs. So the summer EBT benefit, strengthening school sites and SFSP, reducing that threshold to 40%, allowing the program to be operated throughout the school year during the weekends and holidays. And also we know that, folks live in areas where transportation is a barrier. So we really tried to focus on, how could we maybe have competitive grant programs around innovations for transportation and mobile meal delivery. So we try to be cognizant of those things. And the last point I would just quickly say is I think that COVID-19 has really shown had a disproportionate impact on certain communities. And in our bill, we try to expand access to students, especially considering, the disproportionate health outcomes and systemic challenges faced by a lot of disadvantaged and communities of color. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah,
I'd like to jump in, Jen, to talk a little bit about what Andre was talking about. We were able to do some amazing things thanks to the USDA waivers that they allowed us to do. And we have a very large rural community. Our families do not have transportation. They live 30 miles from a grocery store, 30 miles from a school, and we were able to use our mobile bus feeding program and do weekly meals for our families. And what I loved about our weekly meal program is we were able to do some amazing nutrition education. We would put in the boxes strawberries and blueberries and grapes, and we would put in asparagus and sugar snap peas and fruits and vegetables that our families would have never ever seen or never had experience. And in the boxes, we were able to put all this nutrition education material. So we were teaching them how to cut a watermelon, how to cut a honeydew. And our families said that when the kids opened the meals, they said that it was like Christmas looking in the box to see what all this fabulous food was. So it was very equitable. We have, 4,500 kids. We were feeding over 3,000 children a week because of our buses, but we wouldn't have been able to do that without the waivers because we don't have enough bus drivers. So having to go out every single day would not have happened, but because we had the multiple meal waivers and family meal pickup and non-congregate waivers and stuff, we were able to deliver the meal once a week, and we every day went to different parts of the community and were able to access the entire community. So the opportunities to do nutrition education, teach people how to cook and teach people how to eat different foods was just amazing. And we pivoted and pivoted and pivoted, but USDA allowed us to do that. So thank you.
If there's one thing I could add to those comments, is that, you've just heard sort of personal, testimony about how folks have observed how effective these changes were. But we don't have to. We can also buttress that with hard evidence, right? There was just I think last month a report on food security by USDA's Economic Research Service that showed that the rate of food insecurity for households with children declined from 14.8% to 12.5% between 2020 and 2021. 2021 was the year of the pandemic. So that I think is just extraordinary evidence that adapting our nutrition support programs, including really importantly school meals, to the circumstances and experimenting with better ways to meet people's needs can have an extraordinary impact. And we even knew throughout the pandemic that, Census was doing these surveys and people would consistently report that schools were one of the places that they were relying on to receive food. So I think we're in the really good position of having both the really strong qualitative evidence from everyone's experiences, and we have the hard research to back it up.
Yeah, it's amazing that the needle got moved towards more nutrition security during the pandemic with all the supports out there. So yeah, kudos to everyone. I'd like to just turn our attention towards the title of the webinar, Child Nutrition Reauthorization, CNR. The Honorable Bobby Scott, which Andre works closely with, introduced the current iteration of a bill which passed through committee. But the Healthy Meals, Healthy Kids Act, it remains to be taken up in the Senate, and the Farm Bill is likely to be taken up soon. And I know in the White House conference, they did mention many of the provisions that would be in that. But could you talk, each of you, from your perspectives on what those, if those changes were enacted, what you most like to see and why it's important and how it relates to the child's nutrition security in our country?
So I guess I'll jump in first, since this is the bill that we spent a lot of long nights on and a few tears. But so it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint a few policies, but a few ones I want to hit on that I'm hoping we can see come to fruition. So we know that a lot of our members they've come to us, they have priorities around universal school meals, and we know universal, it as Donna was mentioning, it reduces stigma. It alleviates concerns for families that are a little weary of filling out the form because of the climate, nowadays. And so, we really tried to focus on how far can we get with universal, with what we can do, and that was CEP. So, working on the threshold, working on the multiplier, and again, these were provisions we were hoped to see in Build Back Better, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. But we are making a good effort here. And even beyond CEP, I will say that at one point when I was in school, my school had transitioned to a CEP school, so I no longer had to fill out the paperwork. It had that stigma, and even when I did, none of my friends knew I was on the program. I tried to keep it very discreet, which now it seems silly, but those are just things that young kids think about, being self-conscious. And so to move on, as I said before, we saw that SFAs have struggled during the pandemic, and they continue to struggle. So in our CNR, we really try to be really careful about having priorities around maybe increasing the reimbursement, providing some commodity assistance, providing transparency around food service management companies. They have bargaining practices, and proper employee practices. One thing that Donna mentioned, and I wish we could replicate this in every school, is kitchen equipment. And so in our bill, we have 35 million for kitchen equipment and infrastructure. And again, it's necessary to produce the meals that are not only nutritious but palatable and food that kids want to eat, which I think comes full circle, and also reducing food waste and everything. And also just ensuring they have healthier lifestyles down the line. And then two more things I just want to quickly touch on is, we were really, again, back to with our lunch shaming and debt provisions. Our bill really took a step forward and made sure that we ban certain egregious practices that schools take to identify students who are on the program or to collect that debt. And now, even with our bill, schools are required to register to try to enroll that student onto the program if they see they have debt. Lastly, I will say retroactive reimbursement, and I think it's really critical for a lot of SFAs and helping them keep afloat and direct funds back to them. And Donna, Jen, I know you mentioned equity and sustainability. So really quick, I just want to say that we try to be really conscious of those provisions. We established a pilot program for plant-based, the grants for food waste measurement, and we even tripled farm to school grants from 5 to 15 million from mandatory appropriations. And I promise, this last thing I'll say, and is on equity. So again, the chairman and personally, we're a big fan of equity. We think it's really important just to have that lens. And so, one of our major provisions in our bill was, providing that non-dairy alternative for students, because we know that, that a lot of people of color are not able to process dairy milk or dairy-based products. And currently right now, and as I'm sure you're all aware, you need a doctor's note to receive that alternative. And having to get a doctor's note is a barrier in itself. So really, we were trying to make sure we address these concerns, made sure that students weren't coming back from lunch with bloated bellies, and again, in our bill, we still try to ensure that the nutritionally equivalent alternative would be nutritionally equivalent. So at least we know that those minerals and vitamins are essential especially for young kids. And I will end there. So thank you all.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you for all of the work. Yeah. And the long nights, and for fighting for equity, and for bringing your personal experience to bear in crafting the policy. We need more of that for sure. So thank you. And you don't have to end there if you don't want. It's fine. And Donna, you were nodding your head. Was there something you'd like to share from?
Yeah, I just want to hug and kiss Andre right now and hug and kiss the committee, everything they have done. So certainly out in the school community, we are cheering for universal school meals, what we like to call healthy school meals for all, because we really do feel like it is the healthiest meals on the planet. And we do want to reduce that stigma and that shame and provide equity to everybody. Because I go in my lunchrooms and I go in lunchrooms all over the country, actually, and I see what the kids are bringing from home is not near as healthy as what is being provided on the lunch line. But I think kids from home, it's like a big deal to get to bring their lunch from home. But I think if everybody was eating at no cost, that maybe we wouldn't see as much of that. The reimbursement is huge. We are struggling to compete with fast food restaurants that are paying more than we can pay. And we are trying to find skilled labor, and everybody wants us to produce these scratch cooked gourmet meals. But we've got to pay for the people to be able to do that. And like I said, I can't raise my lunch prices like a restaurant can. And so I have to deal with the reimbursement that I have. So the more money there would be really, really helpful. And then the equipment needs are, the 35 million is wonderful, but honestly, I almost think it's going to take $1 billion to fix. We have schools all over this country that don't even have a kitchen. They were built in the Stone Ages when you didn't have walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers, and everything came in a can or was in your storeroom. And so I've talked to these schools about, applying for equipment grant, and they said, I could get a piece of equipment on the equipment grant, but I don't have the infrastructure at the school, the electrical capabilities to even put in that walk-in cooler or that freezer. So it goes far and deep beyond just getting a piece of equipment here and there. And schools want to be able to do all these things, but they're not able to do it. We need permanent waiver authority for USDA to have nationwide waiver authority. We don't know what is coming down the pike, and we know that we've been able to do wonderful, amazing things with the waiver authority that we have had. We don't have that waiver authority anymore. So I'm really hoping with this bill. One of the things we haven't talked about is having enough time for the kids to eat lunch. And I think that is part of the bill. And, people say, oh, there's so much waste in school lunch. There's not really a lot of waste in school lunch. The problem is the kids don't have enough time to eat. Think about eating a salad versus eating a piece of pizza. I can eat a piece of pizza in about 5 or 6 bites in about 2 minutes, but these beautiful salads that we make every day, it takes 15 minutes for those kids to eat them. And our kids do love our salads, but they need more time to eat a whole apple and to eat all these fresh fruits and vegetables that we're providing them. So, we need to work with the Department of Education to get more time for the kids to eat lunch, and then more nutrition education. I say over and over again that the kids don't understand why they need to eat this healthy food. Why do we have whole grains? And why do I need to eat that broccoli? And why do I eat those dark green leafy vegetables and those lentils? Why can't I just eat a candy bar? So I think when we do the cooking classes, we do the gardening, and when we do the nutrition education in the classroom, and we do the taste testing, and the kids understand why they need to eat the food, they're much more likely to eat it. And what is really exciting is they take it home and they teach their parents about eating healthy. I get calls all the time. What's that green fuzzy fruit that my kid ate today? What is that thing that was orange? And I go, that's a mango, that's a kiwi. And so the kids are requesting these foods, and then the parents learn to eat them too. So we can really make a lot of good changes by doing nutrition education. So I'm going to stop there.
And Donna, I know in the past you've said that I am a Southerner actually. So it's like you said you get collard greens from your farmers, and so that's very culturally appropriate and relevant, and tying it to nutrition education. All these things can be possible.
Well, and what's interesting about our local collards is sometimes we get a freeze or a hurricane comes through and our local farmer can't bring us the collards. And so we have to buy store-bought collards, and our kids go, Those are Pete's collards. I mean, they come to the line, they know they're not local. So they really get used to all that really local food. And we started a farmer's market because we had so many farmers growing for us. And I had teachers going to the back door, meeting the farmers. And I kept saying, y'all have got to get out of my kitchens. I'm going to start a farmer's market. And then the farmers have gone there and the teachers go there to pick up all the great local food. So that's why I know it is expanding into more than just our kids eating healthy food.
Oh, well, that's great. Administrator Long, I'm going to add in a question from the audience, but if you could talk to your perspective from the, looking at it as an administrator, but also people were asking if schools can use USDA funds to purchase from their local farmers. And I think Donna has said yes, but maybe you can explain that too.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that question first. And the answer is yes. Of course, the answer is never quite as simple as that. Everyone who works in school food knows this. There are procurement rules you have to follow. But there has been so much work done to help folks understand how to easily and readily and effectively source locally within the procurement rules. So the answer is absolutely. And if you don't know how to do it, we'll be happy to connect you with some resources. In terms of reflection on CNR, I have just been struck in the last few minutes listening to Andre and Donna talk, because as impactful and as strong as these programs are, there are so many areas that present opportunities to make it stronger, which you just heard about, right, for the last 10 minutes. And what struck me is how important it is to move forward. We have not had a reauthorization in over a decade. And I know there's a lot of reasons for it, and it's not for lack of working hard, but I just think it is important to reflect on the fact that it really is time to have a strategy to bring these programs to the point where they can get even better than they are and address all of these challenges that the current environment provides. So I really want those of you that are listening, that are out there in your communities, talking to folks about school meals and advocating for school meals, it is so important that we lift up the importance of these programs. I personally think that one of the silver linings of so many horrible things that came with COVID is that it reminded people of how much folks depend on these programs and how valuable they are, and the extraordinary commitment of the folks that operate them. They were the folks that were coming in during those scary first months, preparing foods, standing in parking lots and providing them to families. And despite the fact that there was a lot of uncertainty and a perception of risk, they were out there. I want to really stress the importance of talking to anybody who will listen, whether they're policymakers, media, about how important these programs are and where the opportunities to improve are. And the one thing I have to say about something that Donna said, one of the things that I do more in this job than I've done before is talk to media. And this perception that school meals are thrown away and it's all about waste is it comes up in almost every media interview. And I just want to put my head on my desk and cry afterwards. So I just think that, the important thing is yeah, there's a waste problem throughout the food chain, and schools have challenges, but we know so much about how to address them, longer lunch periods. And, so I had to comment on that because it's sort of a personal issue of mine at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. There's so many things, so many moving parts for school meals. And for sure, even if there is school waste, we still know that kids they're wasting food. Every American is wasting food, right? But they are for sure, as you mentioned before, the healthiest meals that all Americans get, not just for just school meals. It's just period. But I just wanted to spend a few minutes just reflecting on the White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health, which was, as has been said many times, the first in over 50 years. And some remarkable things came out of that conference. And I guess if each of you want to comment, maybe Administrator Long, you could start us out on what you're most hopeful for and what you think might be short-term versus long-term outcomes.
Yeah, well, I think that the conference was an extraordinary event in terms of energizing the public and private sectors around a coordinated strategy, to accelerate progress and really drive transformative change in the US to end hunger, to improve nutrition and physical activity and health, and reverse some of these sort of dramatic negative health outcomes that are associated with dietary patterns. So I think at a minimum, in terms of identifying the issue and in terms of energy at the conference, it was a huge success. But this is a big, ambitious goal. So there's no question about that. And in thinking about outcomes, I think you're right to consider short and long term. After all, after the first conference, some of the historic accomplishments, they didn't happen, the next day or the next week. It took some time. But I do think it's important to note a couple of things. One of which is that the conference really was a call to action for all of society, government at the federal, state, and local level, the private sector, and the nonprofit sectors. And there are actions that all of these players can take, which are not necessarily explicitly tied to when and how Congress acts around a reauthorization or a farm bill. For example, there were I think around 100 commitments from the private and nonprofit sector that were announced last week, including some really critical ones around school meals, including partners that are committing to training and TA for school nutrition professionals, and commitments by industry to support product reformulation. And those are things that are starting now. The other thing I'll just note is that another near-term opportunity that's already happening that I'm really excited about are steps that local and state governments are taking. I have been really interested and so encouraged to see that at least 5 states are funding a continuation of Healthy Meals for All with their own funds for this year, and in some cases permanently. It's already happening right now this school year. And then there's about another half a dozen that I'm aware of. They're actively considering steps like that. And there are some school districts who have taken new steps towards these kinds of programs of Meals for All, either by reconsidering CEP when they hadn't done it before, or taking other steps like eliminating the reduced price. So I guess I would conclude by saying that there are a lot of pathways and players in the steps that we need to take to get to the lofty and critical goals of the White House conference.
Yeah, thank you. Donna, Andre, either of you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. And even before I start, I just want to say thank you so much, Cindy, for bringing up the food waste issue, because we often hear from folks that that come to meet with us that they say, oh, this school has higher nutrition standards. That's the reason why there's food waste, and and we always point them back to, no, it's type of meals that's being served. It's the how much seat time. When do they place cafeteria lunchtime? Is it before or after recess? So I think those all come into play. And whenever I pass through like a drive-through, like a food desert, which is too often, I like the one glimmer of hope that I have is that at least these students hopefully are on the school meal program and they're getting nutritious meals. But then again, if you have these nutritious meals and you know how to make them and you're exposed to them, come back to the food desert, sometimes it just goes nowhere. So I think it's all-encompassing approach we need to have, but I think that's really critical. And I'll say that with the White House conference and even this call, we've been mentioning everything from seat time, nationwide waivers, procurement, nutrition education, and pretty much everything that was listed in our bill, we have grant funding for, we have allocations for, we're re-emphasizing those. We clarifying that schools can do A, B, and C, and so I think that's really critical, and especially sometimes I'm asleep and I wake up at night and I'm like, oh, we didn't do this on reduce, we didn't do this, and it's like we could do so much more, but again, I think we tried to do what we could that was realistic, but again, our bill is quite progressive, so we think at the end of the day we will have to maybe concede on some things, but I think we're just hoping to work with everyone to get everyone on a good place. And lastly, with the White House conference, I will just say that one thing that we kept hearing over and over was identifying and scaling up programs that work, because as Cindy mentioned, we know what programs work, we know what methods are effective. I think it's just getting these strategically into all these innovations and practices into law. And so which is easier said than done, but I am every day more uplifted by the folks like Donna and Cindy working towards this goal. So
Well, Cindy, you and Andrew did such a great job, but I'll add a few things. I think what I got out of it was how exciting it was to be in a room with 600 people who were sharing the same exact goal, that we all saw the power and the transformative power of nutrition from birth to death, and that we can all play such a role in providing access, affordable access, equity, and things like that. And I thought it was so exciting. But then to have President Biden come out on the stage and mention universal school meals, and then have Secretary Vilsack come out on the stage and mention universal school meals, and then have Chef Jose Andres talk about the power of nutrition and universal school meals. It's like every single speaker kept talking about that. And we all kept, I think the school nutrition community was just jumping out of our seats. So I know it's a long-term goal. You know, I think we're all being realistic that it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think to see the support around it, and to see the fact that there were 6,000 people viewing it right then and there, they saw it, they heard it. And then the website is available that you can go on and continue to look at all the different sessions. And I know they're continually being viewed, because I'm starting to get emails from people saying, oh, I just saw a session that you did, and you know, that kind of thing. So I'm really hopeful that the word is getting out there about that. I think the short term with the child nutrition reauthorization, we need to really get behind that. And we have a goal of getting that done before January 1st. And we're all pushing, and the House has got a great bill. We just need the Senate to kind of come in and take over that. But I think the other thing that I saw so much of was the power of nutrition education. And I think that was really encouraging, that people saw the importance of that, and the fact that we need to reimburse dietitians to be able to give nutrition education and to do diet counseling and things like that. And we've not had very much of that in the past. So I think the opportunity to do some things like that was really exciting. But the energy in the room and the positivity, and it was unlike any other conference. Nobody was ever arguing or disagreeing with anything was said. Everybody was cheering the whole time. So I think it's really exciting to get this momentum going, and we all need to keep going. And I'm hearing from all kinds of people from all different kinds of organizations that were excited about it and wanting to help. And so I think, like Cindy Long said, that we've got so many partners out there that can help us make all of our dreams come true. And why not? We are the most influential and best country in the world, and we should not have anybody ever go to bed hungry. And if I heard that once, I heard it 100 times. And it's just really, really sad to think that is still going on. I had a child recently tell me that he's in college now, but that in high school he was hungry, and he was stealing cereal at breakfast to take home to eat for supper every night, and that he went to go give blood, and that his blood was too high in iron, because all he was eating was iron fortified cereal, like breakfast and lunch and weekends and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, that just should not be happening this day. So, and I think everybody at the conference felt the same way. So I'm energized, I'm excited, I'm optimistic, and I think all of us just need to kind of keep pushing forward.
Well, thank you, Donna. I think maybe Brian can tell me, but I think we have time for one question, which maybe hits, and maybe two if we do it quickly, but a few people have asked about eligibility. And I know one of the provisions is to hopefully ease administrative burdens and eligibility, but a twist on that also is, and I'm really not sure about this, is about citizenship. So Donna, you mentioned no child should be hungry, but I don't know what thoughts are on citizenship and eligibility for kids.
I would prefer Cindy answer that, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, I saw that in the chat, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. So in the school meals programs, any child that can be in public school is eligible for school meals, period. There are no additional requirements associated with citizenship status, anything like that. And that's been the case for a long time, but it's also true that that's not always well understood. And so one of the things that we know we need to do is to just constantly remind folks of that and try to avoid the chilling effect that some perceptions around you're in danger of around your status if you apply for school meals, some of those things. So but the bottom line is there's no barriers of that type for any child who's in a school to receive school meals.
Yeah, and I'll just add that's why I think CEP expansion is so critical, just even removing that even thought of having to fill out an application, because it's really unfortunate that because just because of the lack of understanding, that we have families who are literally making the decision between having their child get a meal versus maybe even possibly having their family being broken up. So I think that's really unfortunate, and I think it'd just be overall if that wasn't even a thought people had to think about. So I appreciate the question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you both. Yeah, I personally was not clear on that either. And one other question I think we may have time for, just there were a couple questions about making school foods more culturally appropriate. And I know, Donna, you've definitely done that, but any thoughts on that?
Well, I've talked to school nutrition directors all over the country, and they're doing amazing things, because I have a friend in Minneapolis Public Schools, and he's got 70 different dialects and cultures in his community. And he does a great job of offering all these different choices. And so I think people are much, much more tuned into that. And I see recipes and I see trays, and I think people are doing a really, really good job all over the country of making foods much more culturally appropriate. So I think that's something we are definitely on. I think the Child Nutrition Reauthorization bill has some great stuff in there about plant-based options, and we need to do more work on that and making sure I understand that USDA understands how to credit those, and we know how to credit those. So I think we've got some work to do there. But I think in terms of school districts doing more culturally appropriate meals, it is really exciting to see. I mean, I see sushi, I see everything out there. You can only imagine. That's why I say we're making gourmet meals, but we just need the kitchens to provide these culturally appropriate meals.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's the challenge for some school food service directors, that maybe they don't necessarily have the facilities. And I kind of, from the audience, I'm feeling like that's from a parent perspective of understanding what needs to happen to make that happen in their communities if it's not already happening. I don't know, Administrator Long, if you were going to add to that. I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuting and I was muting. Well, to the point that you just made about what can parents in their communities do, I think Donna's right. We definitely have, there's always work to keep our crediting policies up to date with what people are currently eating, and we're committed to continue doing that. But really the meal patterns are pretty broad. So it's a question of, I think a part of it is parents getting engaged with their schools around what their expectations are and what they'd like to see on the menu, and schools engaging their kids around the same question. I always say that the thing that when I think about like what makes a difference between a really great program and a program that's fine is the community engagement and the involvement of not just of the entire, of the students, the parents, and the community. And I think that's the way you make change at the school level.
And really quick, I just want to quickly add into the same line of providing culturally appropriate food, which is critical, which is why we have all these procurement and local sourcing provisions. But one provision we talk about is we have a provision where we established a pilot program to essentially allow tribes to operate as a state agency to operate programs. And one of the reasons we did that was because we constantly heard that with the tribes being more in control or having more of that role, they're able to provide more of that culturally appropriate food and just autonomy and sovereignty. And so we were really conscious about that. But we made it a pilot to make sure that we could implement it carefully, and that we know that not all tribes may be able or want to operate the programs as a state agency. And so we're doing the pilot to see what works, what doesn't work, what will be the challenges there. So.
Thank you. So yeah, and I appreciate all of those comments, and I note that New York City just made an announcement, I think it was this week, saying that they were going to have chefs do recipes that were culturally appropriate. So again, I think to Administrator Long's point, it was like engaging the community in that case, and vice versa. It takes a village to feed children, and it's a lot of hard work. And I think from every single level, from Andre staying up late at night, worrying about all these provisions, to Donna, I know personally, she's told me she's gone and gotten milk, driven a refrigerated truck to go get milk because she didn't have enough workers to actually pick up the milk or to get it delivered to her. And Administrator Long, I can't imagine all of the different questions that you get bombarded from and have to deal with. It's been great. And I've been honored to serve as a moderator on this panel. So thank all of you very, very much. I think we have to turn it back over to Brian now and enjoy the time with the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. What an enriching conversation, you all. I could sit here for 3 more hours and learn from you. And I really appreciate thinking about, what we can do as Slow Food USA members and volunteers to advance some of these ideas in our local areas. And fortunately for today, we do have someone to provide a call to action and some guidance for folks who may be wondering what it is that they can do to change their local school district's wellness policies. So I'm going to turn it over to our friend and school nutrition and education leader in Ohio Public Schools named Cynthia Walters, who's also a member of Slow Food USA's School Gardens Community Action Team and its Food and Farm Policy Committee. So yeah, she's got a really great call to action that to share that will help us think ahead to where we can plug in as lay people in our communities.
Absolutely. What can I do? Community engagement. How can we all come together and take really no stone has been left uncovered here, has it? What you've all talked about. And I've been in the classroom. I've had lunch duty. I've worked on wellness committees, forming committees, wellness committees. And here we are at this point where at a grassroots level that we have the ability to have a voice to really address these things and actually become policy writers. So there's a lot going on at the federal level, so you can make a difference. You can actually have a voice. And I don't know if you have that slide available, Brian. It looks like you do. And I realize I only have about a minute here. So just real quick, I wanted to share that we are going to be piloting a wellness committee, district wellness policy toolkit, Slow Food USA. And in that policy toolkit, we'll have an introduction, the what, how, why, and who, instructions how to eat or use each of these resources in the toolkit. And then also there'll be a slide deck that will give committee members some background to, basically what we've been introduced here to develop an understanding before they would embark on writing policy. We will be including a template. It will include policy language for all of us lay people, and really to produce all the different, the minimum requirements of what a policy plan should look like, but also what are those additional components that any committee can add that is most significant and also meets the needs of individual school districts. And there'll be a reference guide, kind of like a checklist that you can see there on the right, that will help serve when writing that policy. So just a lot of other things to talk about here, but just in a nutshell, it is going to be piloted in about 3 to 5 schools nationwide. And if you are interested, please contact me, Cynthia Walters, and there is a email address at the bottom of this slide. And if you are working within or affiliated somehow with the district, that's easy to do. But how about if this is the first time you've heard about a district wellness committee, and you're interested in wondering if you want to join, or if you can participate and use your expertise on a local committee, is what I would do is suggest that you go to the district website. You access the food service tab. Usually that's where it lives for the policy, and read through it, see how you could plug in and ask to be a visitor, to kind of take it for a test ride and really determine if you could really add some benefit to that committee. And there are so many terrific policies out there, committees. This is basically for committees who are improving or creating a new wellness policy. So I'll end with that because I see there's just not much time. Sorry, I rushed through that, but please contact me if you have any questions or want to talk further about this. Thanks for letting me share.
And thank you for sharing, Cynthia. I think it's really helpful to hear this conversation about folks on the ground level and leaders in these movements, and be inspired to take action and learn more about how we can make an impact. So just to wrap things up, I just want to send a huge thanks to our moderator today, Dr. Jen Cadenhead, our incredible panelists, Administrator Cindy Long, Donna Martin, and Andre Lindsay. And certainly thanks to you also, Cynthia Walters, for helping us think about next steps. Also, I want to thank Ed Yowell, Leora Applebaum, and the Slow Food USA Food and Farm Policy team for curating today's conversation. We will be posting this to our Slow Food Live page within the next week. And you can also see some other engaging conversations there for a broad list of topics that intersect with our movement for good, clean, and fair food for all. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our attendees, and here's to an amazing October. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.